it occurred to me we have storytellers on this stage. We have Majid, we have Joe and Joe, who are playwrights. So I think this interview is going to be an interview in 5 acts.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Is one of us going to get married at the end or die?
Well, we do have a surprise at the end. Act 1 is the history of the Good Chance Theater at the Calais, at the Jungle. I'll just give the overview, and then I'll let you fill it in. These men, through crowdsourcing, they went through crowdsourcing, raised money to start a theater at one of the refugee settlements in northern France, perhaps one of the most infamous, actually. 6,000 to 8,000 people were believed to have been there. When you first had this idea to set up a theater in one of these settlements, what was your goal, and what were you able to accomplish?
Well, our goals were many, and stemmed, I admit, I think, from naivety. We'd visited not knowing what to do, but only to bear witness to the appalling things that were happening in that place. And we were so inspired by the hope we found, by the entrepreneurship of the people who were there. They'd built shops and restaurants and basic structures to keep each other safe. And we were also inspired by the willingness and the need of people to tell stories. So it seemed, as playwrights, natural for us to try and stand with those people and offer a space that was warm, safe, and welcomed everyone, where those stories could be told throughout the winter and beyond. And that was the goal. It was as simple as that, I think.
The only other thing I would add is that we come from this tradition where the theatre exists between a place of worship and the marketplace. And there wasn't a theatre in this place. There was a marketplace, a really big marketplace, and people were trading and getting the food that they needed, the clothes that they needed, and there were many places of worship, but there wasn't a place that was dedicated to expression. And this is something that we'll come on to throughout the talk, and how central that is to a healthy society.
So you brought a pop-up geodesic dome, and people could come in and they could create, or they could express themselves. And then you folks were at CityLab almost exactly 1 year ago in Miami to talk about this great accomplishment and all the wonderful things that had happened. And then the morning that you woke, or the morning you woke up to be on the stage to discuss it, you turned on the news. And what did you see?
Well, we saw it on CNN in our hotel in Miami, the caravan we'd lived in for 7 months being demolished. And it was that day, and actually it happened again today. We turned on the news, and it's a year since, and the reporting now is about that, and about the city of Calais, and the fact that many, many people are arriving again. But I suppose, a reminder to us all that this is not something that's stopped, and it's not something that's gone away. The challenges are greater. The challenges have changed. Now we're not talking about camps, we're talking about cities. How we welcome new arrivals, how we create spaces of welcome and expression and integration in our big urban areas. But yeah, it's strangely to see it still, and to see the caravan that we lived in.
And to be here exactly a year later, after having that experience. When you realized, when you first heard that news, did you have any idea what you would do with the theater? You couldn't be there anymore, obviously.
No, we were, in a sense, we were evicted along with everybody else. There was a logical progression, though, which was that many people, once they were evicted, were pushed out and went to places like Paris, or were taken to places like Paris, or distributed around France. And we followed those people. And so we've spent a lot of time in Paris, the first half of this year, in fact, with the same idea. Very different, obviously, being in a huge city like this, but with the same principle, that a physical place, I mean, this feels very odd to say in a digital world that we live in, but, you know, we are unfashionable believers in physical space and what happens between people when we sit eyeball to eyeball and side by side. It's a very different relationship that exists, and it's a hopeful one.
So this brings us to Act 2.
Great.
Oh, wow,
Good
very
Chance
good.
Theater, setting up on the outskirts of Paris. I think we have a video. Let's take a look at what you've been doing, and then we can discuss it on the other side.
Great.
We took the theatre down last year in Calais because of an eviction that was happening, and camps started to emerge in the city. And at that time we were also thinking about how Good Chance could continue to help the people who we'd been working with for the last year. We visited many areas in the north of Paris, which is where a lot of the refugees who are arriving in the city are living. And in that area we found a group of musicians called Collective Mu.
They welcomed us, they gave us an office straight away, and they said, look, why don't we do this together?
For us it was a very new kind of project, and we really want to get involved about the population around, and especially refugees. We were thinking about building a project with them. Good Chance was a perfect project for that.
It was a sort of magical. It was amazing how it could match. Not only you have the work that Mu is doing on the local communities, which is very important, but at the same time they have many artists in residence, and with many of them that are interested by the project, and we are going to work together.
Tout s'est embrayé très vite. Voilà, c'était ce que je peux dire, c'est que c'était improvisé, mais en même temps, je pense que le projet, on a une grosse partie de l'équipe, voire toute l'équipe a tout de suite accroché avec cette idée d'ancrage vraiment concret sur un territoire et de propositions alternatives.
Mais il y a aussi un truc, c'est que je pense qu'on avait tous envie que la station, comme je disais, soit engagée aussi, plus proche aussi d'une forme d'actualité. Et je pense que Good Chance nous a aussi apporté l'opportunité de révéler aussi un caractère politique de la station.
In that space and in the station, there was, it wasn't that you were a refugee anymore. It wasn't that you were Mu or you were Good Chance. It was a big group of people doing individual projects all around, but working together.
Autrement que des associations qui vont travailler sur des choses concrètes avec eux, sur les papiers ou sur l'hygiène. Là, c'est un travail artistique, de rencontre, et c'est tout aussi important. C'est vraiment un autre pan. Je pense au niveau de l'humanité, de retrouver une forme d'humanité, d'identité, de présence au sein d'une société, de pas être sans arrêt remis sur le côté, mais là d'être vraiment intégré à un projet.
The improvisations that happened, the art that people made, the paintings, the poetry, the performances were all informed by their situations, and I think being able to share that with other people and be heard and be listened to and be acknowledged is important for every single person.
Was someone being taught the Thriller dance? Was that Michael Jackson's Thriller in there? I think I saw.
There's so many collisions of different dance styles. I don't know what that was in the end.
Tell us a little bit about the location you chose and why you chose it.
Well, when we did a lot of research and development here, we met everybody we could, both from the artistic world, because there are some of the greatest theatres in the world in Paris, and the humanitarian organisations working in the grassroots way, but also the bigger organisations like MIU Solidarité. We found quickly that there was a very large collection of people who were newly arrived in the north, in Port de la Chapelle and in Port d'Aubervilliers. And in Port de la Chapelle, there is the Welcome Centre that the mayor has set up, which has been doing fantastic work at being that first point of contact for people who are arriving. But there are many, many more than that can accommodate. So there were many people on the streets. And we knew very quickly we wanted to anchor our work there, to be in that place, to be a place where if you'd spent a month under a bridge, you could find somewhere to go to where you can begin to talk. You could begin to think in a controlled and managed way about the situation you were in, to meet people, meet French people who you could speak to and learn from, begin that so difficult process of what we call integration, but which is really compromise, understanding, empathy. It's harder than any of us admit, and I suppose we wanted to try and be that first step for those people who weren't being accommodated already.
Joe, did you notice a change in the stories at all? A change in the way people were feeling, as opposed to the jungle?
Good question. I suppose the main difference being that in Calais we worked with lots of people. In fact, nobody wanted to be there. In Paris, there are many people who are beginning to put roots down, to claim asylum, to go through the process of becoming a citizen of this city and this country, which is a very different atmosphere, and in a sense is a more urgent atmosphere because you need to begin the process of communicating different cultures and bringing different communities together, which, as you say, is a much more difficult thing than we admit.
But there is this natural resource that exists in all our cities, probably on every street in every city in the world, and you don't have to drill for it, and it's renewable, and actually when you use it, it generates more of itself, and that is artists. You know,
Come on.
Artists, you know, it is the perpetual motion machine, and when they are activated and mobilized and supported and, yes, funded, they will do incredible things, and they can create these spaces, these neutral spaces where people feel permission to talk and begin that process of understanding.
Have you run into any resistance at all? And if so, what kind?
The first great challenge was to find a place. Obviously, cities are packed full, and there are buildings and there are projects, and there's everything happening in a city. So I think we were quite fortunate that SNCF, the rail company, had begun this brilliant scheme where they were trying to offload some of their unused spaces, and they'd given it to an electronic music collective, and we partnered with them, and we used their backyard for a number of months. So our problem of space, which I think is the primary issue when you're working in a city, was solved fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Act 3, we're going to bring in Majid. Majid, you're an illustrator, right? When did you start drawing? When did you start becoming an illustrator?
Like another child when I was a teenager, I painted or something. Sorry, my English is not very well.
No, you started painting as a teenager.
Painting. After that, I continued in university fine art, but illustration and cartoons for the newspaper or something. This I continued. I moved from the fine art to the animation, and graduated animation. But no, I didn't work for a big gap between. I had a big gap between that graduated. About 10 years, I completely disconnected to the art or anything. After 10 years, completely I keep this distance from the art in the Calais jungle. When I was a refugee in the Good Chance Theater, again I connected to the art. Again, it came back step by step.
So you met Majid at Calais, right?
Well, yeah. I remember you. Okay. I remember you arriving in the theatre and saying, I need food, clothes, and shelter. What the hell is this doing here? We don't need art. I mean,
it was completely suddenly. For a period of time, for many years, I completely disconnected with the art. When I came as a refugee, I think exactly 2 years ago this time, in the November, early after November. Yeah. It was 2 years ago, around 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Completely, I was a loser. It's a very bad psychological, bad mood, bad situation.
Yes.
Just I came here, first I looking for like another resident of the Calais camp. I looking for some distribution center for the food, clothes, or but I remember I looking for the shoes because I couldn't find the
You wanted shoes,
yeah. I came to the Good Chance Theater for hope. When I came here, I was completely upset. Why? They don't give anything. Some crazy, the crazy people that play the acting, right? Something there. Why? They are crazy.
Murphy, I want to bring you in. So you meet Majid, you realize he's got this incredible talent. Fast forward to, you've been in England, you realize there is a contest that you want Majid to take part in. Explain this video contest.
It was a brilliant competition. The competition was launched by Elton John and Bernie Taupin. Many of their videos, well, they never had videos for many of their songs because they'd been released before that tradition had started, and so they wanted to do this. And we latched upon to one of the songs in particular and began to speak with Majid about it, and it was Rocket Man. And
you think it's gonna be a long, long time. That one, so that you all know.
Can't say.
So they were looking for someone to. They were looking for people to make videos.
They were
songs.
indeed. They were indeed. And we began to talk about how the song might relate to the experience of a refugee. Not the experience of an astronaut going into space and missing his family, but the experience of leaving your country and missing your family, and how to begin a life in a new place. And that's where...
And then we talked to you about it. We showed you the song. And then within a day, you'd created a video treatment that was so utterly beautiful. And then we submitted it. And it was like, oh, no, he's going to win it. And then he won it.
And then he won it. And so...
Thank you very much.
You know, let's take a look so people can understand what we're talking about. We've got about a minute and a half. It's really beautiful. I encourage you to watch the whole thing. I wish we could show you the whole thing.
So, about a year after leaving Calais and arriving in Britain, Majid went back to France, to Cannes, as the director at its world premiere, and was welcomed with open arms. And this now has so many views on YouTube, and he's communicating a different side of this story in such a profound way, and has kick-started so many conversations and a different kind of discourse. And I just think I think it's amazing and incredible. So.
And also, I can say, last time I came to Paris, about I think 1.5 years ago, I was in the Calais. I came with the Calais with the video ticket, with the train came to the Paris, and one is yes, sorry, with the ticket we moved to a different part of the France. And that last time I slept on the street, like a lot of any refugees you can see another part of the city. Last time it was this. Now I'm staying in the good hotel.
So I want to get to Acts 4 and 5 quickly before we run out of time. You are a playwright. You have written a play about the experience and the jungle. Tell us about where that is and where in the writing process and the development process and how people can see it.
So we start rehearsals on Monday, God. It will be at the Young Vic Theatre in London, co-produced by Good Chance and the National Theatre. And it is a huge cast of people that we met in Calais, who are refugees who have now arrived in the UK, and other actors from all across the world. It's a beautiful room to be in, and hopefully an emblem of the kind of communication and communal work that we need to get through what is admittedly, I think, a very difficult moment in our collective history. We're often segregated. There's not much dialogue, and the play is an attempt to try to produce some dialogue between us, to show similarities rather than differences.
And finally, you have something to announce about the Good Chance Theatre.
Yes.
Drum roll, please.
We are able to announce today that we will return to Paris with our temporary theatre dome in January. We've been invited by the mayor and by MOU Solidarité. We'll build it this time in Porte de la Chapelle, next to Le Bourg, the Welcome Centre, and for the first 2 months exist there as a place of refuge and welcome, and hopefully that will be the beginning of a much longer period of time working here in collaboration with the fantastic artists and partners we have got to know and started working with over the last year, and hopefully we can continue to build that coalition, not just artistically and in the humanitarian way, but with businesses and with the municipalities, and with, we're trying to build a broad coalition here that says people, when they come together, are much, much stronger. And the challenges we face, we can solve if we work together, and if we use that natural resource, which is, I think, art.
And just one final thing before we run out. This is something that we believe has a place in many, many cities across the world. And we're all gathered here, and the reason that we're gathered here is to share ideas, and this is one of them. We believe that culture should be at the centre of our cities, and we're up for chatting after this talk, so come and find us, and we would love to do that. All right.
And that is the end. Take that.
That was the quickest 5-act play ever. Well done.
Thanks so much.